All right, fifth grade. And today we're going to start our next chapter, which is chapter 11. You need to make sure you have your chapter 11 packet, which says to declare independence or not. This packet mainly talks about the two sides that were the beginnings, or that kind of were the sides of our American Revolution, which were the Patriots and the Loyalists. So, in this lesson, we're just going to talk about what were the main arguments to be a patriot and what were your arguments if you were a loyalist. The second lesson, we're going to go through the main people who were patriots and loyalists. And the second lesson is you're going to summarize your points of what were the points that took a person to be a patriot and if they were a loyalist. So to start, let's go over some vocabulary before we start reading. So our vocabulary is independence, which is separation from or freedom of control by another country or government. A loyalist were people in the American colonies who opposed independence and wanted the colonies to remain under Great Britain or the King's control. Neutral means you weren't taking any sides. Patriots were people in the American colonies who wanted to become independent of Great Britain. And a traitor was a person guilty of betraying or acting against his or her own country. Pretty much, if you were a patriot, you were automatically a traitor. Okay, so if you were going against the king and trying to fight for independence, you're considered a traitor. All right, so let's begin reading. And what we're going to do is turn the page, and we're going to list the arguments first of what were arguments for a patriot and what were arguments for a loyalist. So, tensions grew between Great Britain and the American colonies between 1763 and 1774. In this lesson, you'll read about the colonists who argued for and against separation from Great Britain. People who wished Great Britain did not rule the colonies were called patriots. They thought that Great Britain was taking advantage of them, and they believed the colonists would have more freedom and security if they were their own nation. Those are your first two reasons for this next page, which says arguments for Great Britain, right? So a patriot, the first one was they thought that Great Britain was taking advantage of them. And the second one, they believe the colonists would have more security and freedom if they were their own country. So those were the first two viewpoints of a patriot. Patriots argued their causes in speeches and newspaper articles. Others took stronger action, such as joining mobs that attacked the homes and businesses of those who disagreed with them. There were colonists who wished to remain loyal to the monarchy and not separate from Great Britain. They were called loyalists. So now the second column, loyalist. They believed that Britain provided order to the colonies. So that's one of the main reasons. They thought America should remain under the control of Great Britain. Some acted more passionately, carrying out armed attacks on patriots. Many colonists did not take sides because they did not care whether or not America separated from Britain. That's a neutral. So that's what we're going to go over with the main questions. Why did some colonists want to remain under the rule of Great Britain, and why did other colonies want to part ways with Britain? Okay, so those are the 2 points. What are the reasons that are fueling the American Revolution? So we already went through the timeline. We know the sequence of events of what's going to happen in the American Revolution, but knowing the reasons that were leading the people to do that is also very important to understand. So who were loyalists and patriots? The colonies were divided over the question of independence, or separation from Great Britain. Historians disagreed about how many colonists chose to be either patriots or loyalists. Almost all believed that there were many more patriots than loyalists, but probably less than half of the colonists were patriots. Some colonists were neutral and did not take sides. The loyalists included many kinds of people, some of them who were rich landowners. They feared that patriot mobs might take their property. Some loyalists were governors who had been appointed to their jobs by King George III. These men liked their government, and they felt that it was their duty to make sure that British laws were obeyed to the colonies. So if we go to the column that says loyalist arguments, one would be landowners and government employees or government appointees. And their reasons were they feared patriot mobs would take their property, and they felt that British laws were to be obeyed by the colonies. Other loyalists were religious leaders. So that's another group of loyalists. They believed that it was wrong to oppose the king and told the followers that they had a duty to be loyal to the church. Oh, I missed a sentence, sorry. Religious leaders who believed that the king's power came from God. Many of them, which is called divine right, many of them were members of the Church of England, Great Britain's official church. They believed that it was wrong to oppose the king and told their followers that they had a duty to be loyal to the church and to the colonies. So let's go to our colonist arguments and list those. So if we turn the page in our packet, I've already done the other half of it. We have our loyalist arguments. So Britain provided order to the colonies. You have landowner and government appointees. They wanted land protected from patriots, and it was their duty to make sure British laws were obeyed. And you had religious leaders who thought it was the duty to be loyal to the church and to the king. So now let's read about the patriots. Many colonists were patriots, including merchants who lived in and around the city of Boston. They were angry about British taxes on goods such as tea and paper. The taxes hurt their businesses because many colonists boycotted the taxed goods. So this is now our arguments for patriots. Some patriots were lawyers who fought in the courts against British laws. They thought they were unfair. They believed that the colonists should have more say in making laws that directly affected them. Some people were farmers, while others were people who worked at crafts such as printing and shipbuilding. Many believed that independence would bring more wealth to the colonies. In this lesson, you'll learn about the 3 loyalists and 3 patriots. All right, so we're going to read about those people next time. So let's go to our arguments for the patriots and why they felt that independence was key. So we have our patriots arguments. I'm just going to block it so you don't get confused. Great Britain was taking advantage of the colonies. The colonies would have more freedom and security if it was its own nation. Merchants felt that there were too many taxes and it was hurting their businesses because people boycotted those items, which means they weren't buying them. And if they weren't buying them, then the people who owned those stores, the merchants, weren't making any money. Lawyers thought British laws were unfair and the colonists should have a say in laws that affected them. And then you had farmers and skilled people, and they felt that independence would bring more wealth as a new nation. So this is just a short little lesson to give you an intro on the points for the patriots and the points for the loyalists. And our next lesson is we'll go through the people and actually come up with the reasons of what they felt made them a loyalist and what made them patriots. All right, have a great day, 5th grade.